So as I said earlier, if anyone missed it, my name is Tess McAvoy, and I am delighted to welcome you on behalf of Amnesty International and my own organization, the International Service for Human Rights, to the 2023 Human Rights Council pledging event. Today's event provides candidates for membership of the Human Rights Council the opportunity to present their vision for membership and the priorities they will work on if elected. It's also an opportunity to ask questions of candidates on their human rights records and pledges. I would like to start by extending a special thanks to the two permanent missions who are sponsoring this event, Belgium and South Africa. Their support was essential, and our sincere thanks go to the ambassadors and their teams. Our organizations are also incredibly grateful to Rio Hada, the Chief of the Equity, Development and Rule of Law section at the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and his team for being here today and for moderating this event this year. We acknowledge and appreciate the participation of OHCHR for many years now. Elections to the Human Rights Council are often not as competitive as we would hope, and unfortunately closed states are common. We are disappointed that this year 3 regional group slates are closed, namely Africa, Western Europe, and Asia and the Pacific. We strongly encourage all regions to reconsider this practice in the future. We also welcome the 2 other regions are presenting competitive slates, which will allow for a genuine election of those slates in October. Amnesty and ISHR have been proud to organise this event for 13 years, and we are delighted that this year there are 11 candidates joining the event, and all regions are represented. We are at the same time troubled by the fact that 6 candidates declined to participate, namely Burundi, China, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Kuwait, and Russia. Nevertheless, the next 2 hours will provide an opportunity for dialogue between candidate states and stakeholders, and it is an important exercise in transparency and accountability. We are very happy to see once again a large number of attendees, including civil society in candidate states from across the world and in time zones all around the world joining us for this event. We welcome your engagement and your questions to candidates. The responsibilities of council members have never been more crucial, and the council's success depends on its members and their readiness to fully implement the council's mandate set out in General Assembly Resolution 60251. That resolution recognises the importance of engagement and full cooperation with all stakeholders in the council's work, and most importantly, that member states shall uphold the highest standards in the promotion and protection of human rights. Lastly, I want to highlight that ISHR has prepared scorecards which offer a quick, at-a-glance objective analysis of each candidate state, focusing on criteria such as cooperation with the council, support for civil society, engagement with UN treaty bodies and special procedures, among other things. We will share the link to these scorecards in the chat during this event. With that said, let me wish all state candidates best wishes for today, and Rio Hada, the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much, Tess, and sincere thanks to the organizers of today's event, Amnesty International and the International Service for Human Rights, and the event co-sponsors, the permanent missions of Belgium and South Africa. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, dear colleagues, I'm delighted to welcome you to this interactive segment of the 2023 Human Rights Council pledging event. Today's event provides candidates for membership of the Human Rights Council for the term 2024-2026. This is an opportunity to present their vision for membership and the priorities that they will work towards if elected. It is also an opportunity, as Tess said, for stakeholders to ask questions to candidates on their human rights records and pledges. This event has become part of the annual calendar of events in New York and in Geneva. OHCHR is pleased to have been associated with it for several years, and I'm delighted to continue this transition. An opportunity for dialogue between stakeholders and an important exercise of promoting transparency and accountability. All 17 candidate states were invited to join us today. I wish to extend sincere thanks to the 11 candidates who accepted the invitation and who are with us today, namely Albania, Brazil, Bulgaria, Côte d'Ivoire, France, Ghana, Indonesia, Japan, Malawi, Netherlands, and Peru. I applaud their willingness to engage and thank them for approaching the exercise in a spirit of transparency and accountability. 6 other candidates either declined to participate or did not respond to the invitation, namely Burundi, China, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Kuwait, and the Russian Federation. A few words on the format of today's event. In the opening segment, each candidate state has been asked to outline in 90 seconds what they hope to achieve through its membership, both at the national and international level. In the second segment, we will open the floor for questions from the audience. Questions will be taken from both Twitter using the hashtag HLC pledging and the Zoom Q&A. We'll be taking general questions directed to all states, as well as questions directed at specific states, including those participating in today's event and those that are not joining us today. Questions posed through the Q&A function can be liked by other audience members. Please feel free to like questions posed by others in the event so that we can get a sense of questions that have interest from others. In the second segment, to ensure the greatest opportunity for engagement between candidate states and the audience, we urge candidates to be short and concise in your responses, not exceeding 3 minutes. Representatives exceeding 3 minutes per response will be gently reminded to wrap up. Our aim is to have a rich and dynamic discussion. As there will be likely more questions shared than the time available, any questions shared that are not asked during this event will be collated and forwarded to the respective candidates and also posted online. So before we turn to the candidate states for their opening statements, I would now like to give the floor to co-sponsors for opening remarks. And I have a pleasure of inviting His Excellency Mr. Martinus van Schwalkwijk, Deputy Permanent Representative of the Republic of South Africa to the UN in New York, to make some brief opening remarks on behalf of co-sponsors. Mr. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Rio. I hope you can hear me. Yeah, it seems I'm audible. Thank you so much, and thanks, Mr. Moderator, for moderating this session. We really appreciate being part of it. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, today we gather to engage with potential candidates on the Human Rights Council for the period 2024 to 2026. As you know, South Africa shares the view of many other countries and stakeholders in considering that the Human Rights Council is an important multilateral forum where the international community can work together in a constructive and a meaningful way to develop norms and standards in the field of human rights, and which will foster the promotion, protection, and practical realization and enjoyment of all human rights by all people across the world. It's in this context that we look forward to the engagement today with the candidate countries and their potential contribution to the Council and their commitment to its mandate and all human rights. We thank those countries that have taken the plunge and that will be doing this. It's never easy for a country to do this, and we look forward and we praise the fact that you are willing to do this. In an era characterized by rising nationalism, divisive politics, and growing differences amongst member states at the United Nations, the value of the Human Rights Council is even more pronounced. It serves to uphold the idea that despite our differences, humanity should develop and share certain non-negotiable principles. At its core, the Council champions the idea that certain rights and freedoms are universal. They're indivisible, they're interrelated and interconnected, and provide a platform for dialogue on best practices in human rights. Importantly, the Council allows for the involvement of non-governmental organizations and civil society, something we as a country treasure immensely. This inclusivity means that its focus is beyond state actors. It seeks to include the voices of the very people whose rights are at stake by including as many channels as possible for their voices to be heard. And this participatory approach ensures that the Council remains relevant, informed, and grounded. Our presence here acknowledges the common understanding that human rights can only be practically enjoyed through an effective partnership with all relevant stakeholders at all levels. South Africa's own journey from the beginning of our democracy to today is underscored by our intention to play a constructive role in the global arena and help contribute to norms, standards, and values at the multilateral level that will foster respect for human dignity, advancement of human rights and fundamental freedoms. So colleagues, we should not underestimate the importance of such an event as this one today. It reaffirms the value of human rights, the principles of their universal application and equality, and recognizes that despite our differences, humanity shares certain non-negotiable principles. We therefore look forward to the candidates countries to commit to working together to further strengthen the mandate of the Council, which we value as a forum that must remain faithful to multilateralism and a rules-based approach based on international law for protecting and promoting human rights and fundamental freedoms. I thank you, Mr. Moderator, and look forward to the discussion and the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for those encouraging words. We will now begin our discussion with the candidates. I will give each candidate states the opportunity to state what they hope to achieve through its Human Rights Council membership, both at national and international level. Candidates have 90 seconds for this initial statement. Given the number of interventions that we want to facilitate today, I urge each state to please stay within the time limit, and we will proceed in alphabetical order. First, I would like to give the floor to the distinguished representative of Albania, Mr. Adrian Lubonja, the Deputy Permanent Representative of Albania to the United Nations Office and international organizations in Geneva. Albania has ratified or acceded to all 9 core international human rights treaties and the related protocols, has issued a standing invitation to UN special procedures and accepted all country visit requests, has no cases of alleged reprisals highlighted in the Secretary General's reports from 2012 to 22, and was previously a council member in the 2015 to 2017 term. Mr. Lubonia, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. First of all, it's an honor for me to participate in this activity, and I would like to thank all the organizer and the co-sponsor of the activity. I believe that it's a very good opportunity for Albania to briefly present a vision and the pledges upon our candidacy from the Council. Albania has demonstrated its strong ambition to contribute to strengthening the human rights system, and we have shown this in many occasions. If elected, Albania will focus on the following areas. First, strengthening accountability and rule of law, holding all perpetrators of serious crime to account, and to fight impunity and deter for the breach of basic rights. We will work to strengthen the role of the special procedure, treaty bodies, and universal periodic review, which are the basic pillars of UN system to ensure accountabilities and all the violation of human rights. We will defend the independence of special reporters to do their job. Second, promoting women's rights and gender equality. We believe that putting women and girls at the center of the peace and security is a good investment in long-lasting and more sustainable peace. We will work closely with a partnership with all countries to ensure the implementation of WPS agenda. Promoting civic space and protecting human rights defenders. Albania will believe that civil society and human rights defenders must continue to play the vital role in Human Rights Council. We will also spare no efforts in combating all the form of intimidation and reprisal against civil society actors who engage with the United Nations. For protecting the promotion children's rights, we'll do all our best together with all the countries to improve the situation of children worldwide. More specifically, our pledges are Albania will remain strongly committed to promotion and protection of human rights in the world. We will cooperate with all the states to promote the protection of human rights for all. Will contribute further for a more dynamic and efficient Human Rights Council, and above all, preserve its credibility, independence, and effectiveness. Albania supports the participation of civil society actors and human rights defenders, especially women, in the work of council and on the ground. We advocate for greater use of human rights information in our common efforts to develop effective early warning system and early response capability. Human rights are and should be used as a value set of tools for conflict prevention. Albania will support and strengthen the role of High Commissioner in UN system, including the cooperation in the works with Security Council. Based in our last-standing tradition of tolerance, Albania will continue to promote intercultural and interreligious dialogue, strengthening the protection of freedom of religion or belief. Albania confirms its commitment to fighting all the forms of discrimination, racism, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, and hate speech. Albania advocates for the right of attention and engagement of multilateral forums on the nexus between climate change and human rights. At the national level, we are convinced that our membership will serve as a catalyst to advance the human rights agenda in the country. We will continue to implement the judiciary reform, aimed to promoting the independence of judiciary, as well as increasing our capability to effectively investigate and prosecute a person engaged in high-level corruption. We will continue to elaborate and implement adequate policy and measures to ensure fulfillment of rights of children without discrimination. At the end, I would like to thank again for this opportunity, and I am open for the question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lubonia. May I remind everyone to keep your first interventions relatively short so that we can have plenty of time for interaction. Next, I would like to invite the distinguished representative of Brazil, His Excellency Ambassador Tovar da Silva Nunes, permanent representative of Brazil to UN in New York, to take the floor. Brazil has ratified or acceded to 8 out of 9 core international human rights treaties, and the related protocols, has issued the standing invitations to special procedures, currently has pending requests, has cases of alleged reprisals highlighted in the SG reports, and was previously a council member in the 2006 to 2008, 2008 to 2011, 2013 to 15, 2017 to 2019, and 2020 to 2022 terms. Ambassador Nunes, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation and warm greetings to all of you. Now, if elected, Brazil will strongly engage in the Human Rights Council as an active member, exercising both its voice and vote. We will prioritize the promotion and protection of human rights for historically marginalized individuals and groups, including persons of African descent, women, indigenous peoples, quilombolas, people living in the streets, older persons, and most especially LGBTQIA+ persons. As a full member of the Council, Brazil will firmly fight for the preservation of hard-fought achievements in human rights, strengthening existing rights, and introducing new initiatives, such as resolutions addressing racism. Our voluntary commitments include 24 key areas, all of them underpinned by a strong cooperation with the civil society organizations. We've recognized that meaningful progress in the Council relies on active partnerships with these vital stakeholders. Our engagement at the Council will be closely aligned with our domestic human rights policies, reflecting the values of our vibrant democracy and also the diversity of the Brazilian society as a whole. At the end of our term, we aim to have made a meaningful contribution to a Human Rights Council, making this body increasingly relevant, representative, and capable of delivering concrete solutions to the challenges on the ground. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Nunes. Next, I would like to invite the distinguished representative of Bulgaria, Her Excellency Ambassador Stoeva, permanent representative in New York, to take the floor. Bulgaria has ratified or acceded to all 9 core international human rights treaties, has issued standing invitations to special procedures and accepted all country visit requests, has no cases of alleged reprisals highlighted in the SG reports, and was previously a council member in the 2019 to 2021 term. Ambassador Stoeva, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Great to see you all. I would like to thank Amnesty International, the International Service for Human Rights, as well as the permanent missions of Belgium and South Africa for organizing today's discussion. It is an honor for me to engage with the stakeholders. At a time when human rights are increasingly challenged, the role of the Human Rights Council is ever more relevant. If elected, Bulgaria will work to further strengthen the Council so it can more effectively assist states to protect and promote all human rights for all. Will promote the participation of civil society in the work of the Council, as civil society is indispensable for raising awareness, monitoring, and reporting on human rights violations and issues, and ultimately it is instrumental for the development of new human rights standards. We are committed to support the work of the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights and to further strengthen our cooperation with it. If elected, Bulgaria will focus on the following areas: working to support measures and policies aimed at combating all forms of discrimination, hate speech, promoting gender equality and empowerment of women and girls in all spheres of public and political life, protection and promotion of children's rights, combating disinformation, supporting media freedom, and the safety of journalists. Finally, Bulgaria recognizes that achieving the highest possible standards in human rights is a journey, and no country has 100% excellent track record, including my own. Therefore, the membership in the Council would allow us to raise the profile of human rights issues at national level, as well as to mobilize support for putting in place and implementing policies in line with the highest standards in the promotion and protection of human rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Stoeva. The next on my list is Burundi. Burundi has ratified or acceded to 6 out of 9 core international human rights treaties, has issued a standing invitation to special procedures, and currently has pending requests, has cases of alleged reprisals highlighted in the SG's report, and was previously a council member in the 2015 to 2018 term. As mentioned before, Burundi did not respond to an invitation to participate in this event. The next on my list is China. China has ratified or acceded to 5 out of 9 core international human rights treaties, has not issued a standing invitation to special procedures, and currently has pending requests for country visits, has cases of alleged reprisals highlighted in the SG reports, and was previously a council member in the terms starting 2006, 2009, 2014, 2017, and 2021. As mentioned, China did not respond to invitation to participate in this event either. So I'll move on to the next country on the list, which is Côte d'Ivoire. Côte d'Ivoire has ratified or acceded to 6 out of 9 core international treaties, has not issued a standing invitation to special procedures, and currently has pending requests for country visits, has cases of alleged reprisals highlighted in SG reports, and was previously a council member in the terms starting 2013, 2016, and 2021. Now I'd like to invite the distinguished representative of Côte d'Ivoire, His Excellency Ambassador Ajomani, permanent representative to UN in Geneva, to take the floor. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Merci. Je voulais d'abord préciser.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would just like to present the excuses of the ambassador who is away, and I am taking the floor as the deputy ambassador. First of all, I would like to thank the Amnesty International, the International Service for Human Rights, for having organized this meeting to allow us to present our vision and strategy as regards promoting human rights. I would also like to mention that Côte d'Ivoire would like to continue the work it carried out during previous mandates. It would like to also continue to promote and protect human rights internationally and nationally. We have made some voluntary pledges, and we hope to continue these in the next mandate, and we've provided a note, a memo that has been also transmitted to all member states. We also will be looking to, well, I would like to note that my country has already ratified 7 out of the 9 core international human rights instruments. This includes the Convention on Protection of All Persons Against Enforced Disappearances, among others. My country has also ratified the African Charter on Human Rights, and it's also signed the protocol approving the creation of an African Court on Human Rights. We also, in 2022, adopted a national plan on human rights based on the recommendations of treaty bodies. Côte d'Ivoire has also drafted a midterm report on the implementation of the MECA recommendations made by the UN bodies when they visited the country recently. I would like to reiterate our commitment to protecting and promoting human rights. We, in our new mandate, will be able to promote all of these rights effectively. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next country on the list is Cuba. As mentioned, Cuba did not respond to the invitation to participate in this event. Cuba has ratified 5 out of 9 core international human rights treaties, has not issued a standing invitation to special procedures, and currently has pending requests for country visits. It has cases of alleged reprisals highlighted in the SG reports, and was previously a council member in the terms starting 2006, 2009, 2014, 2017, and 2021. The next on the list is Dominican Republic, which did not respond to invitation to participate in this event either. Dominican Republic has ratified or acceded to 6 out of 9 core international human rights treaties, has not issued a standing invitation to special procedures, and currently has pending requests for country visits, has cases of alleged reprisals highlighted in SG reports, and was not previously a council member. The next on my list is France. France has ratified or acceded to 8 out of 9 core international human rights treaties, has issued a standing invitation to UN special procedures, and currently has pending requests for visits, has cases of alleged reprisals highlighted in SG reports, and was previously a council member in the terms starting in 2006, 2008, 2014, and 2021. Now I'd like to invite the distinguished representative of France, Her Excellency Madame Delphine Bourillon, Ambassador at Large for Human Rights, to take the floor. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup. Merci aux organisateurs et aux coparrains pour cette session extrêmement.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the co-sponsors and organizers for this very useful session. I'm also grateful for the interpretation. Indeed, France is honored to present its candidature to the HRC following its previous term, during which it made special efforts to work on behalf of the rights of women, freedom of expression, to combat impunity, and also to serve human rights defenders. The multiple global challenges mean we have a huge responsibility with regard to human rights, France wishes to reiterate its commitment to multilateralism in action and upholding of universality of human rights and human dignity as the only response to major challenges. Let me now present three main priorities. First of all, solidarity. In the spirit of the Agenda for Peoples and the Planet of June 2023, we will advocate for strengthened action of the Council on behalf of economic and social rights and international solidarity. We will be promoting development based on human rights and greater social resilience, as well as respect of human rights by businesses. We also wish to better respond to the triple planetary crisis, climate change, accelerated biodiversity loss, and degradation of the environment. Our second priority, freedoms. Included among our commitments are the following: promoting discussion of ideas and freedom of the academic sphere, permitting action of civil society and protecting human rights defenders, inclusion of the youth in our work, preserving freedom and protecting from invasion on privacy, discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity, and freedom to dispose of one's own body, to have control over one's own body. We will call for universal decriminalization of homosexuality. Thirdly, justice. France proposes that the Council should strengthen its action on behalf of reconciliation and transitional justice. We will be proposing that we work on a conflict and specifically to benefit children. France will continue its action on work on discrimination based on origin, religion, sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity. We will continue to work towards universal abolition of the death sentence and ratifying the Universal Convention on Enforced Disappearances. In our view, given a central role to women, would implement the Secretary General's commitments on this issue. We also wish to ensure we work with partners in the human rights system based on strong ambition to build more just, freer, and more equitable societies. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Next on my list is Ghana. Ghana has ratified or acceded to 6 out of 9 core international human rights treaties, has issued a standing invitation to special procedures, currently has pending requests for country visits, has cases of alleged reprisals highlighted in the SG reports, and was previously a council member in the terms starting in 2006, 2008, and 2015. Now I'd like to invite the distinguished representative of Ghana, His Excellency Ambassador Emmanuel Antwi, the permanent representative of Ghana to UN in Geneva, to take the floor. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Let me first thank the organizers, Amnesty International, for this event, for providing us the timely opportunity to present our vision when elected onto the Human Rights Council. As you are aware, Ghana has served on the Human Rights Council 3 times, which was 2006 to 2008, 2008, 2010, and 2015 to 2017. In all these tenures, Ghana pursued the interests of victims of human rights abuses around the world. The theme Ghana has chosen for its tenure this time is promotion and protection of human rights for global peace and development. To enable it, highlight the significance of human rights in the creation of a peaceful and prosperous world. Our vision is to contribute to global peace and development by ensuring the realization, respect, promotion, and protection of human rights of all persons in accordance with international laws and conventions. The government of the Republic of Ghana reiterates its long-standing resolve to cooperate with the international community and all stakeholders to promote and protect human rights globally through constructive dialogue and a consensus-based approach. Ghana therefore voluntarily commits itself to the following: 1, to continue to participate actively in the work of the Human Rights Council. 2, to continue to strengthen policies for the advancement of women to eliminate laws that discriminate against women. 3, to continue to strengthen policies for the advancement of women to eliminate laws and discrimination against women, to advance and protect the rights and welfare of children with the best interest of the child as the paramount consideration, to maintain a standing invitation to all United Nations special procedures, to continue to cooperate fully with UN human rights treaty bodies and promptly submit its periodic reports to treaty bodies. We also intend to strengthen the Council to enable it to achieve its aims and objectives and to ensure that Ghana becomes state party to all core human rights instruments and to complement its human rights treaty obligations. In conclusion, Ghana, as a member of the United Nations Human Rights Council, will be dedicated to meeting its international human rights obligations while also working to advance these rights on a global scale to ensure the attainment of peace and development. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Next on my list is Indonesia. Indonesia has ratified or acceded to 6 out of 9 core international human rights treaties, has not issued a standing invitation to special procedures, and currently has pending requests for country visits, has cases of alleged reprisals highlighted in the SG reports, and was previously a council member in the terms starting 2006, 2007, 2011, 2015, and 2020. I'd like to invite the distinguished representative, His Excellency Fabian Rudolph, Permanent Representative to UN in Geneva, to take the floor. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. You hear me? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. First of all, I would like to correct you. We are ratifying 8 out of 9, not 6 out of 9. Okay. So I would like to thank the organizer, ISR and Amnesty International, and the co-sponsor, Belgium and South Africa. Our participation in this event shows our commitment to openness, inclusivity, and dialogue with all stakeholders. This spirit resonates well with our theme for the Human Rights Council, which is Inclusive Partnership for Humanity. Should we be elected this October, there are 3 main priorities of Indonesia. First, to strengthen countries' capacities to promote and protect human rights, mainly through improved technical cooperation and capacity building. We need to improve assistance in terms of quantity and quality, including through sharpening OHCSR program in line with the UPR outcomes. Often, countries' willingness to cooperate and receive assistance are met with limited funding and capacities of the OHCSR. We need to change this. Second, to improve the dialogue between states and political and regional groups. It is a key for the Council to avoid deepening polarization, moving forward and adapting to many emerging issues. Divisiveness prevents consensus and real action on the ground. Indonesia would like to bring the spirit of dialogue. Countries with different values must be approached, and consultation with NGOs and CSO must be taken. Third, to firmly encourage robust implementation of the UDHR and the VDPA. We will forge stronger cooperation so states can be responsive to combat racism, xenophobia, and intolerance. We will also push forward to maintain progress in women's and children's rights, torture prevention, and business and human rights. In closing, we count on your support. We stand committed to working with all of you, including civil society, human rights defender, and other stakeholders in advancing human rights globally. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Next on my list is Japan. Japan has ratified or acceded to 7 out of 9 core international human rights treaties, has issued a standing invitation to special procedures, and currently has pending requests for country visits, has cases of alleged reprisals highlighted in the SG report, and was previously a council member in the terms starting in 2006, 2008, 2013, 2017, and 2020. I would like to invite the distinguished representative of Japan, Mr. Yukio Saita, Minister at the Permanent Mission of Japan at the UN in Geneva, to take the floor. Mr. Saita, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would like to first thank all stakeholders for organizing such an important occasion. I'm excited to be part of it. Japan is firmly committed to the promoting and the promotion of protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms, which represent a universal value. Japan has served as a member of the Human Rights Council for 5 terms. During our membership, we have actively contributed to its work, including by acting as a penholder and a core group member of resolutions. Upon our return, Japan will redouble our efforts to improve human rights situations throughout the world based on our principle of dialogue and cooperation. Japan will promote voluntary efforts of nations toward the democratization and the protection and promotion of human rights. Japan gives a top priority to gender equality. We also attach our high importance to addressing such issues as the rights of the child, the rights of persons with disabilities, diversity in society, and business and human rights. Last but not least, Japan will continue to engage in dialogue and cooperation also with civil society, so that we can collectively improve human rights situations both internally and externally. Japan is ready to serve as a dedicated member of the Human Rights Council from 2024. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Saita. The next country on my list is Kuwait. As mentioned, Kuwait didn't respond to invitation to participate in this event. Kuwait has ratified or acceded to 7 out of 9 core international human rights treaties, has issued a standing invitation to special procedures, and currently has pending requests for country visits, has cases of alleged reprisals highlighted in SG reports, and was previously a council member in the 2011-2014 term. Next on my list is Malawi. Malawi has ratified or acceded to 7 out of 9 core international human rights treaties, has issued a standing invitation to UN special procedures, and currently has pending requests for country visits, has cases of alleged reprisals highlighted in the SG report, and was previously a council member in the 2021 to 2023 term. I would like to invite the distinguished representative of Malawi, His Excellency Ambassador Pacharo Kaira, Deputy Permanent Representative to the UN in Geneva, to take the floor. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Moderator. We would like to join those who have spoken before us to thank the organizers of this event, as well as the co-sponsors, and also to say that Malawi is very pleased to be part of this process. What will we do if re-elected to the Council? Malawi hopes to continue what we have started in our present term, that is, being a constructive, consistent, principled, and pragmatic voice in the promotion and protection of human rights, with our firm belief in the universality, indivisibility, interrelatedness of human rights, as well as needing a strong, credible institutions as well as international cooperation. This will achieve on 2 fronts, domestically as well as on the international level. And at domestic level, we'll progressively implement the recommendations and concluding observations of the UN and AU treaty bodies, as well as the UPR mechanism. We'll continue to work closely with civil society organizations and ensure the protection of civic space. We'll review laws where necessary and other policy frameworks for the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. We will develop policies and programs in line with Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 2063, as well as Agendas 2040 of the African Union. We will enhance the implementation of measures to address climate change. Internationally, we'll continue to participate in key human rights institutions such as the Council, as well as other mechanisms at the UN and African Union levels. We will enhance our cooperation with the UN special procedure mechanisms through the standing invitation. We'll continue to improve Malawi's engagement with the United Nations treaty bodies, particularly in follow-up to implementation of concluding observations. We will also advocate for practical equality of nations in international affairs, and we will actively participate in global and regional agendas such as Agenda 2030, Agenda 2040, as well as Agenda 2063. We have circulated our voluntary commitments and pledges, and will be willing to engage further on specific questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. The next on my list is the Netherlands. The Netherlands has ratified or acceded to 8 out of 9 core international human rights treaties, has issued a standing invitation to special procedures, and has accepted all country visit requests, has no cases of alleged reprisals highlighted in SG's reports, and was previously a council member in the terms starting in 2006, 2007, 2015, and 2020. I'd like to invite the distinguished representative of the Netherlands, His Excellency Mr. Wim Geerts, Human Rights Ambassador, to take the floor. The Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Honored to represent the Kingdom of the Netherlands at this session, which, as you know, consists of 4 countries located in Europe and the Caribbean. First of all, I'd like to thank ISHR and Amnesty International for organizing this important event, and Belgium and South Africa for co-sponsoring it. The Dutch government actively promotes and protects human rights, be they economic, social and cultural rights, or civil and political rights. Membership of the Council serves as a constant reminder of the need to advance these universal rights for all, both at home and abroad. In the context of the Council, open and frank discussions should be encouraged. Acknowledging that no country, including our own, has a perfect human rights record, we work continuously to ensure that our national laws and policies comply with the highest human rights standards. In this regard, the importance of the UPR cannot be overstated. In our pledge, which you can find online, we commit to fostering inclusive dialogue, both between states and with civil society, promoting human rights while leaving no one behind, protecting human rights, and ensuring accountability. In short, the Kingdom of the Netherlands stands ready to be your partner in promoting and protecting human rights. I look forward to discussion to elaborate on our specific priorities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Next on my list is Peru. Peru has ratified or acceded to all 9 core human rights treaties, has issued a standing invitation to special procedures, and currently has pending requests for country visits, has no cases of alleged reprisals highlighted in SG reports, and was previously a council member in the terms starting in 2006, 2011, and 2018. I'd like to invite the distinguished representative of Peru, Dr. Luigio Piloto, the Vice Minister of Human Rights and Access to Justice, to take the floor. Mr. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. We are thankful for the invitation extended to us, and this is certainly an opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to protecting and promoting human rights and to acknowledge the efforts of the HRC. In Peru, we have a high level of participation, and we have also worked with 7 main bodies. As such, we are to engage in an internal process to further the participation of civil society and to be involved in UPR efforts at the United Nations. Since 2002, in fact, we have extended an open invitation for visits, and we have received a visit from the High Commissioner on Human Rights in 2022 as special guest of the Human Rights Body in January 2023. We have also undertaken commitments to further promote human rights at national level based on a human rights approach, specifically targeting vulnerable groups. We have a human rights plan involving businesses, and the human rights plan has been used as input for promoting human rights policies, which we are working on as a country. We wish to be a committed member of the Council to further strengthen multilateralism and to ensure that priority is given to human rights. We want to see a Human Rights Council that is much more active, dealing with problems around the world, and to further cooperation to improve the situation of all people. We will also further promote institutional strengthening of the Council, collaborating with all mechanisms and organs to combat all forms of discrimination, to promote gender equality, as well as to promote human rights. We are grateful for the invitation, and we are, of course, available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Minister. The last on the list of candidates is the Russian Federation. As mentioned, the Russian Federation did not respond to invitation to participate in this event. The Russian Federation has ratified or acceded to 7 out of 9 core international human rights treaties, has not issued a standing invitation to UN special procedures, and currently has pending requests for country visits, has cases of alleged reprisals highlighted in SG reports, and was previously a council member in the terms starting in 2006, 2009, 2014, and 2021 until the April 2022. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I'd like to thank the candidate states for their initial vision statements, and this concludes the first part of our discussion. We will now present some questions to candidates from the audience. In order to make the best use of the time available, we kindly request you send through concise questions that allow as many members of the audience as possible to contribute. Questions can be of a general nature and asked of all candidates or directed to a specific candidate. Each candidate will be invited to respond to at least one question, and no candidate will be required to respond to more than 3 questions directed specifically to that state. Candidates have 2 to 3 minutes to respond. We have 5 questions from the audience in the first group of questions, and we will go in reverse alphabetical order. So the questions are asked to Peru, the Netherlands, Malawi, Japan, and Indonesia. And I will read out all the 5 questions received so that you'll have some time to think about your response. The first question is to Peru. This comes from Cecilia Ramirez Rivas, Centro de Desarrollo de la Mujer Negra Peruana. Structural and systemic racism, ethnic and racial discrimination is one of the main problems faced by the Afro-Peruvian people, affecting areas such as education, health, and employment. What actions will be taken to combat them? Access to racial and social justice continues to be a major challenge. Will these issues be a part of Peru's agenda at the Human Rights Council? The next question is directed to the Netherlands from HIVOS. We welcome the commitment of the Kingdom of Netherlands in engaging with the UPR process, especially in making recommendations to states under review and other international human rights mechanisms and instruments. However, we note that when it comes to the implementation of accepted UPR recommendations or concluding observations from treaty bodies received, there has been a lack of full implementation, as visible, for example, in the concluding observations around the rights of intersex persons through the Committee Against Torture in 2018. Relevantly, we ask, how does the Kingdom of the Netherlands plan on improving the adequate and full national implementation of accepted UPR recommendations and concluding observations from the expert committees from the treaty bodies? The next question is to Malawi from Elisha Sibare Wamkinga. Human rights for older persons have not been upheld for many years in many countries, including Malawi. Human rights for older persons, the aged people. As a candidate for election to the UN Human Rights Council, what will be your contribution for a UN Convention on the Rights of Older Persons? There is a project to develop a potential convention on the rights of older persons under the UN General Assembly Open-Ended Working Group. The next question is to Japan from Human Rights Watch, which asks a question about the so-called hostage justice system. In Japan, the criminal authorities, that is police and prosecutors, question suspects without a lawyer. According to Human Rights Watch, in East Asia, it is only the North Korea and China, apart from Japan, which does not allow lawyers to be present at interrogation. Investigators press suspects to answer questions and confess to the alleged crimes, even if they invoke the right to remain silent. Does Japan commit to reform its criminal justice system, including the access to lawyers and the rights to remain silent? And the last question of this first round is to Indonesia from Forum Asia. Human rights and humanitarian situation in West Papua region remain dire, especially with increasing militarization and resulting international displacement together with the systemic restrictions on fundamental freedoms. During the UPR, Indonesia accepted a number of recommendations to investigate allegation of violation in Papua and ensure accountability. However, despite the lack of public confidence in international processes, the government did not agree to allow independent monitoring of the situation, including by the High Commissioner and the special procedures. Will the government commit to provide unfettered access to Papua region by the High Commissioner and relevant special procedures and other independent experts, including by facilitating a visit by the High Commissioner in line with President Jokowi's 2019 invitation to the former High Commissioner to visit Papua? So now I will turn to those states for response. The question was to Peru regarding the situation of Afro-Peruvian people. Vice Minister, you have the floor. 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. The state of Peru has created a series of instruments which are designed to combat all forms of discrimination, particularly discrimination related to matters of race. And this, of course, relates specifically to Afro-Peruvian people. We have a national policy for mainstreaming the intercultural approach. We also have an intercultural health policy, a sectoral policy on intercultural education, and bilingual intercultural education, the national policy on indigenous languages, oral traditions and intercultural issues. And we also have 2040 and 2030 plans on these matters. We also have the 2040 interculturality program, and then we also have a national policy on Afro-Peruvian people up to 2030. We also have an initiative entitled Peru Without Racism, which aims to guarantee respect for cultural diversity, to help to reduce ethnic or racial discrimination. This involves implementing various different lines of action throughout society, and it also takes a comprehensive approach to tackling racism. Additionally, we have created the National Commission on Against Discrimination, and in 2021 we created a guideline system to provide advice on these issues. We're also strengthening the Racism Alert platform. This also involves providing access to a reporting process for citizens. The policy of the Peruvian state is closely linked to combating all forms of discrimination. And this means in the case of any individual who may feel discriminated against, and all persons who belong to the Afro-Peruvian community, which is of particular interest in our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Minister. The next question was for the Netherlands regarding the plan for implementation of UPR and treaty body recommendations, including on the rights of intersex people. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for this very good question. We greatly value the UPR process. It's truly egalitarian, and it's a transparent review process that we fully support. And we also welcome civil society to keep us sharp during that process. It's work that goes on continuously, also on improving these processes, also at our national level. We have an interministerial working group on human rights, where we discuss these matters, also with the National Human Rights Institute, actually a meeting next week on this, on where are we and how can we do better. So it's a continuous process, and again, we very much appreciate NGOs also to work with us on this to make sure that when and where possible we do even better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. The next question was for Malawi with regard to human rights of older persons. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this question on the rights of older persons and what would be Malawi's role in the development of the International Convention on the Rights of Older Persons. So firstly, as a country domestically, Malawi has a policy on the rights of older persons, and it is our belief that the policy will be translated into legislation soon. And then regionally, we have ratified the African Protocol on the Rights of Older Persons in 2021. So I think that shows our commitment on the rights of persons, on the rights of older persons, and certainly and surely we would be involved and would welcome a United Nations Convention on the Rights of Older Persons. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. The next question is to Japan. It was about the criminal justice system reform, including access to lawyers. Mr. Saita, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Yes, that's a very important question to Japan. And Japan's National Policy Agency and other justice agencies, and I should say justice system as a whole, conducts investigations and other activities, of course, based on evidence and in accordance with relevant law. So, but at the same time, we are aware of the criticism just expressed by by the civil society now. So as a member of responsible member of the international community, and as a candidate for the Human Rights Council, will continue to address all the issues related to the Japanese justice system. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Saita, for your response. The last question on this first round was for Indonesia regarding access to West Papua region by independent monitors. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you. The government of Indonesia has always been and will always deliver a quick, inclusive, and comprehensive humanitarian response, including in West Papua. From 2018 to 2023, around 10 billion rupiahs, or around 670,000 US dollars, have been delivered as humanitarian assistance to the IDPs and people affected in the Papua provinces. This is delivered in the form of cash and other humanitarian essentials like emergency tents, food, clothes, sanitary product, emergency school, emergency trauma center, etc. We also have seen on a considerable number of IDPs return to their home. And our government commitment is to provide a safe repatriation of the displaced Papuan to their homes. In relation to the displaced person situation in West Papua, I'd like to clarify with regard to the issues of the investigative mission demanded by some CSOs. As you know, the Indonesian government invited former High Commissioner Prince Said Rad Al Hussein, who was in Jakarta in 2018, to visit Indonesia. High Commissioner Prince Said was invited to see the development in Papua by our president. He then delegated the invitation to the Bangkok regional office. The visit will be a very good opportunity for the OHCHR to witness my government effort in building a better Papua according to the SDGs. However, due to a series of unfortunate events, security concern in 2019, pandemic COVID-19 since the beginning of 2020, and this year, where all governmental institutions focus on the G20 presidency that was last year, it is still not yet feasible to carry out the invitation. Unfortunately, several parties have twisted the planned visit, as if the visit were a human rights investigation mission conducted by OHCHR. And I believe such practices will only delay the realization of the invitation even more. Cooperation between Indonesia, OHCHR, and other concerned parties need to be strengthened, especially to correct these misleading matters. Instead of using megaphone diplomacy, I think it will be more effective if concerned parties take advantage of good relations with the Indonesian government to raise concern about the human rights situation in Indonesia. After all, the government of Indonesia will always be open to receiving constructive input and suggestion. All in all, the government of Indonesia continue to discuss with the regional representative of OHCHR in Bangkok regarding the realization of my government invitation to visit Papua. Lastly, we wish to emphasize in the case of mutilation in West Papua, the case has been decided at the court and the perpetrator has been charged with the life imprisonment, and the court proceeding was transparent and open for public. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. This concludes the first round of interactive dialogue. Now, in the second group, we will try to cover the remaining 6 candidate states, again in reverse order from Ghana, France, Côte d'Ivoire, Bulgaria, Brazil, and Albania. And thank you very much for your questions. We had to, given the time constraints, we had to be selective, and we picked one question each for each state, which I will read out for all 6 states now. The first question is to Ghana from Global Interface Network, SSOGIE. Given the recent legislative developments concerning matters related to sexual orientation and gender identity, and in particular the draft anti-LGBT law that is being considered, how do you propose to A, protect the rights of all of your citizens, including those of diverse sexual orientation and gender identities? And B, do you intend to stand by the principle of universality of human rights as a member of the Human Rights Council and ensure that all persons are protected from violence and discrimination? The question to France is from an NGO which wished to remain anonymous. The question is, why is France reluctant to accept the request for an official visit in France of Clément Voulet, UN Special Rapporteur on freedom of peaceful demonstration and speech, who tried already 3 times without getting any answer? The next question is to Côte d'Ivoire from NGO Drapeau Blanc. If elected, what will you do to promote and protect human rights defenders around the world? The next question is to Bulgaria from the International Association for Human Rights Advocacy in Geneva. On the basis of express references and conclusions of the UN Committee Against Torture and the European Court of Human Rights, the internal deportation process adopted by Bulgaria in practice prevents asylum seekers from submitting a complaint to international human rights mechanisms after the decision of the Supreme Administrative Court to reject the asylum application that do not allow asylum seekers to seize the international mechanisms. How does Bulgaria intend to adjust its internal legal and administrative orders in the near future to remedy such situations and to comply with its international commitments in this specific area? The next question is to Brazil from Conectas Direitos Humanos. Regarding the commitment to promote and protect the rights of women, including those actions related to the promotion of the right to health and sexual and reproductive rights, how does the Brazilian government intend to guarantee compliance with the recommendations of the UN Committee Against Torture after the country's review in May of this year, which suggests the decriminalization of voluntary termination of pregnancies, also considering the guidelines of the WHO on the subject? Is there an increase in the effectiveness, elaboration, or implementation of public policies in different areas, such as health, social assistance, and education, that guarantee access to legal abortion and related care? It is important to emphasize that unsafe abortions are one of Brazil's main causes of maternal mortality. The main victims are Black women and girls. The last question is to Albania from an NGO wishing to remain anonymous. Could you kindly give an overview of plans the government may have to amend the law for the registration of non-profit organizations to further protect civic space and avoid over-regulation of civil society, NGOs? More generally, what are the actions the government intends to take to uphold the right to freedom of association? So now may I turn to Ambassador of Ghana to respond to the question from Global Interface Network regarding the anti-LGBTI law. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. The laws of Ghana proscribe violence against all persons, including LGBTI persons. The Parliament of Ghana is currently engaged in a second round of stakeholder consultations with religious and traditional groups aimed at resolving religious and cultural differences associated with the promotion of proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill 2021, which is being sponsored by major religious groups, traditional leaders, and some members of parliament. Nevertheless, Parliament is considering submissions made by human rights activists, including the Ghana Bar Association, academics and intellectuals, as well as the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, to ensure that the bill complies with the fundamental human rights and freedoms guaranteed under the country's 1992 Constitution. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now, may I turn to France regarding the question about the request for visit by the Special Rapporteur on freedom of peaceful demonstration and speech. Madame Ambassador, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup. Alors, tout
Thank you very much. First of all, I would just like to recall that France issued a standing invitation to special procedures, and we support special procedures very actively. Now, of course, there has been a bit of a delay with COVID, but soon we'll be welcoming two of these special rapporteurs, the one on education and the other one on extreme poverty. As regard Mr. Voulet, we are in regular contact with him and with the whole permanent representation in Geneva, and we have provided a written response to his most recent communication. We always strive, of course, to respond to the various different communications that we receive. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador. The next question was for Côte d'Ivoire regarding the plan to promote and protect human rights defenders. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. So this is quite a general question. What are we doing, or what do we plan to do to promote human rights defenders around the world? Now, in Côte d'Ivoire, we focus greatly on peace and security, and we focus on promoting this with all of our neighboring countries. And as our president says, dialogue is what strong people engage in. Now, as the coordinator of the African group, Côte d'Ivoire always promotes dialogue and also supports the activities of the Council, particularly as regards the members of the African group. We will continue to encourage other states and African states to ratify the various different international instruments on human rights, to ensure that human rights can be strengthened at the national and international and regional level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. The next question was for Bulgaria regarding the situation of asylum seekers. Madam Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I am not sure I have the exact question and I understand it correctly, but I just want to highlight that Bulgaria is a state party to the Convention on Refugees, and we do follow strictly the procedures which are stipulated there. The right to asylum is also guaranteed by Article 27 of the Constitution of the Republic of Bulgaria, with the conditions and the procedure order are stipulated in our national law on asylum and refugees. As I said, we are a state party to the Convention on the Status of Refugees from 1967. I am not sure, the question was mentioning something about not allowing asylum seekers to seize the international mechanisms. My understanding is that any asylum seeker that thinks and considers that they have been treated unjustly can address any of the international human rights mechanisms that exist. But I'm happy to take that question further and provide additional answers because I'm not sure I understood it correctly.
Thank you, ambassadors. We will post and forward you all the questions received so that you may wish to answer at a later time. The next question was for Brazil regarding the sexual and reproductive rights. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I thank Connectors for this question. It's obviously a very important issue for Brazil. And during our periodical review, we had the opportunity to clarify that for Brazil, safe and legal abortion refers to women's access to good quality and humanized health care, in particular to sexual and reproductive health services, in accordance with the cases prescribed by the Brazilian legislation. But in the Brazilian legislation, there are only 3 cases of legal abortion, where it's spontaneous, when the pregnancy puts at risk the life of the pregnant woman, including the case of anencephalic fetus, or when the pregnancy is a result of violence. But understand that even in those legal possibilities, there is a need to provide assistance to to women that are already under a lot of psychological strain and stress. And so the government is making sure that it's in place, whatever is necessary for that. And in our view, you need a number of professionals to assist the women that are going to perform a legal abortion, so that not only on a medical side, but also psychological side, there is full assistance to this. And we have a special concern that usually unsafe abortions are actually practiced by those the most vulnerable, the Black community, and those that are most poor. So this is also tackled through a series of public policies addressing the racism or the structural racism, and specifically the vulnerable situation of Black people. So this is currently a top priority also of the Minister of Health. Madam Minister Nisia Trindade has herself pronounced at the very beginning of the current government to indicate that it's her job to provide these health service to to women in order to protect their rights. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. The last question of this round was to Albania regarding the protection of civic space. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Well, as I mentioned at my entry remark, we strongly believe that civil society and play a very important role in political landscape in Albania. We have a very, very open and broad consultation process with civil society's actor, not only between the government, but also in the parliament, and the civil society is involved in the process of discussion for many the main process of reforms, and we will continue to do so. We are open and to discuss with the civil society for all the problem or all the concerns that the civil society actor has, and including the question, the NGO that made this question. So we are open to discuss, and we will discuss with different actors regarding the law and all the concerns that civil society has in general. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This concludes the first round of dialogues. Now, we have also received a group of questions for states who are not present here today, and in the spirit of transparency and accountability, I would read out those questions. The first question was for Burundi from a human rights defender wishing to remain anonymous. Burundi did not participate in the last session of the Human Rights Committee due to the presence of a human rights defender in exile. Burundi sentenced in 2020 in absentia a dozen defenders and journalists for undermining the internal security of the state as a result of their activism. Even human rights defenders who remained in the country remain under threat. For example, the recent conviction and imprisonment of journalist Florian Irangavie and the appeal by the Public Prosecutor's Office against the acquittal and release of 5 human rights defenders from AFJB and APDH. What do you intend to do to guarantee the rights of human rights defenders and improve civic space? The next question was for China. A question was asked by Human Rights Watch and the Rights Practice. Last year, OSHR issued a report documenting Chinese authorities' own policies of targeting cultural and religious practices, family separation, mass arbitrary arrests and detention, rape, torture, and enforced disappearances across Xinjiang. The report concludes that, and quote, the extent of these practices may constitute international crimes, in particular crimes against humanity, end quote. Just last week, the High Commissioner's spokesperson confirmed that these laws and policies, quote, are still in place, end quote, and demand accountability. A state committing crimes against humanity in violation of the standards set out by the General Assembly should not be elected to the Human Rights Council. Will China agree to a discussion of the report by the Human Rights Council and an independent international investigation, and commit to urgently implement all recommendations in the OSHR Xinjiang report and the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination urgent action on Xinjiang, including in relation to the clarification of whereabouts of those disappeared and ensure safe communication channels with their relatives. The next question was for Cuba from CubaLex. What concrete measures have you taken to promote respect for freedom of expression and the right to peaceful protest without discrimination on the basis of political opinion? A question to Dominican Republic from Dominicans for Justice and Peace. What measures is the government of the Dominican Republic contemplating to significantly improve the quality of life and working conditions of Haitians and people of Haitian descent who work in the sugarcane fields? What actions will it promote in this area through the Human Rights Council? Question to Kuwait from the Gulf Center for Human Rights. Peaceful protesters online and offline continue to be arbitrarily arrested in Kuwait. What steps is the government going to take to ensure the release of all those arbitrarily detained and ensure guarantees of non-repetition? The last question to Russian Federation from human rights defenders wishing to remain anonymous. The General Assembly cited Russian Federation's, quote, violations and abuses of human rights and violations of international humanitarian law, end quote, as well as, quote, gross and systematic violations and abuses of human rights, end quote, in Ukraine when it voted 93 against 24 to suspend Russia's membership of the Council. In the 12th month since then, the Human Rights Council mandated Commission of Inquiry on Ukraine has reported on rape, torture, gender-based violence, indiscriminate attacks on civilians, all carried out by Russian forces in what the Commission has called war crimes. Will this documented evidence of severe human rights violations committed by Russia in Ukraine, why should the General Assembly be asked to reconsider Russia's membership on the world's human rights body? Now, ladies and gentlemen, we still have about 15 minutes of time for to allow us another quick round of questions. And I suggest that we can go as far as the time allows. And I will go, I'll take it by a group of 3 states, this time in alphabetical order. First, Albania, Brazil, and Bulgaria. The first question is to Albania from Geneva International Center for Justice. In the context of AI, the artificial intelligence-powered surveillance technologies, how does your country plan to address the potential bias and discriminatory outcomes in AI algorithm, particularly when they're used to make decisions that directly affect people's lives, such as criminal justice or job recruitment? The next question is to Brazil from Human Rights Watch. Police abuse is a chronic problem in Brazil. In a month, police killed more than 60 people in 3 states. What reforms is Brazil planning to put an end to police violence? Will it support the UN mechanism on racial justice in law enforcement and its renewal? The third question is to Bulgaria from the International Association for Human Rights Advocacy in Geneva. How does Bulgaria intend to adjust its internal legal and administrative systems in the near future to remedy situations of this kind and bring itself into line with its international commitments in its specific area? And excuse me, I'm going to take questions for 2 more states, Côte d'Ivoire and France, so that the other states can also have a little bit of time for preparation. The question to Côte d'Ivoire from the International Bar Association Human Rights Institute. Can you please describe your commitment to enhance domestic judicial system, including ensure de jure and de facto effective judicial independence, uphold international fair trial standards, improve access to justice and access to a lawyer, promote and enhance protection and independence of lawyers, bar association, and all legal professions? And to France from Human Rights Watch. As a Human Rights Council member expected to uphold the highest human rights standards, what reforms is France planning to put an end to long-standing discriminatory police targeting Black and Arab youth, and to ensure that these abuses are properly investigated and sanctioned? How will France ensure that the critical work of organizations seeking to end discrimination, defend migrant rights, protect the environment is encouraged and not hampered by restrictions of civil society? And I think this will be the first group of questions. So may I go back to you, Ambassador Albania, regarding the question of artificial intelligence and new technology.
Thank you. Albania has approved a digital agenda 2022-2026 that set out its vision for responding to a changing digital landscape and aims to encourage investment in key areas of advanced computing and data processing, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and the advanced digital capability that needed to be further developed. We are investing a lot especially to securing against the attacks, cyber attack. The National Agency for Information Society has initiated a various projects to inform the citizens with their rights and to realize that those rights through digital's means. So we try from one side to enforce our structure, and the other sides we try to raise the awareness of the public for their rights, but also the challenges, and that we will continue in this direction in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, I'll turn to Brazil regarding racial justice and law enforcement.
Thank you. You know, the Brazilian government has worked in important actions aimed at addressing all forms of violence against vulnerable groups in general. We have launched what is called in Portuguese PRONASCE 2, the National Program for Security with Citizenship. This program, in line with the National Plan for Public Security, envisages specific targets to tackle the unacceptable rate of homicides actually affecting the most vulnerable people in Brazilian society. So the idea is to increase effectiveness and integration in the prevention and combat of violence. And according to the Brazilian authorities, in consultation with civil society and experts, we realize that unless we tackle the real reason behind the violence through education, through appropriate housing, through cultural aspects of the lack of support for the most vulnerable, through sports and providing a dignified life to people in vulnerable communities, this will not change. So there is one axis of action, which is strictly working with the forces in order to drastically reduce and hopefully do away with the violent acts. On the other hand, attacking or tackling and combating all of the reasons for these inequalities to arise and for the violence to occur. So this PRONASCE 2 program is an overarching program of Brazil in order to deal with violence in general, to deal with structural racism, and to provide support for the communities that are affected by criminality and where these violence occurs. So this is on the priority not only of the forces or the authorities related to human rights and security and justice, but also human rights related to women, indigenous population, environment, but also health. So it's not only dealt with the human rights ministries, we have 4 of them, but also it's across the idea of providing sustainable development and assisting vulnerable communities to get out of the situation that vulnerability and be assisted in order to enjoy the right to a dignified life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. To Bulgaria, Madam Ambassador, apologies, there's a little bit of mix-up The intention was that I will repeat the question from the first round to see if you have any additional insight. The question was that internal deportation process in Bulgaria in practice prevents asylum seekers from submitting a complaint to international human rights mechanism, and how does Bulgaria intend to adjust national laws and policies in the near future. I'll come back to you, Madam Ambassador, after the next speaks at the end of this first round, if I may. Apologies again. So may I turn to Ambassador Côte d'Ivoire regarding a question about improving access to justice, access to lawyer.
Thank you. I believe the question relates to our commitment in administering justice within the justice system. Let me recall the recommendations that were issued to Côte d'Ivoire under the UPR4 included that measures be taken by Côte d'Ivoire within its judicial system. That was done under the 2022 Act that is Act 221 dated 25 March 2022, which upholds and further supports the judicial system. It stipulates that strengthening of the judicial system, which was formerly chaired by the President of Côte d'Ivoire and is now chaired by a retired judge, was done, and that was also under Article 45 of our Constitution. All this to say that the judicial system is now exercising independent powers separate from the executive. Secondly, to strengthen the powers of the judicial system, in 2022, we did pass a law highlighting the importance of the judiciary and the issue of incompatibility with the high functions of government and the need to protect the system from all possible threats, so that this would add to further efforts to strengthen the judicial system. And currently, judges can now operate independently. With respect to lawyers, all Ivorian citizens are entitled to assistance by legal officers, even if they do not have the means and cannot afford such services. These are to be provided through the state. They may also request for such services regardless of their means. They may require and they can request financial support in this regard. This is with respect to the 2022 legislation passed following the UPR review of our countries, and we are certain our country is moving towards independence of the judiciary, which will in turn strengthen the powers of the judiciary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Apology again to Madam Ambassador from Bulgaria. We actually have a new question, and so I suggest that we will take Bulgaria with the second group instead of making you go back to the first question. So apologies once again. Now, may I turn to Madam Ambassador from France with regard to a question on the police targeting.
Merci beaucoup. Alors, tout d'abord, je voudrais rappeler que...
Thank you very much. Let me start by recalling that the fight against all forms of discrimination and all other types of conduct are indeed a priority of the government. And we make no distinction in terms of discrimination, in terms of religion and other aspects. Now, with respect to the question, any ethnic profiling is strictly forbidden in France under our constitution and the provisions on equality. So any so-called racial profiling is strictly prohibited under our laws, under our internal security code and the ethics code of the police service. And so the police service and the gendarmerie are bound to implement those standards. Training has also been carried out to strengthen the efforts of the security forces. And where there are instances of discriminatory behavior, these are subject to follow-up, and administrative and judicial measures are taken against such perpetrators. We have a platform within the gendarmerie which makes it possible to report online such practices. With respect to activities of organizations that strive to promote equality for all and respect for all, we impose no restrictions. Indeed, we encourage civil society and NGOs to express themselves so that they may carry out their duties freely. This is a key principle which we seek to uphold. And as I said earlier, when there are instances and measures that have been taken that go against those rules, there are measures that are put in place under our laws, and we have disciplinary measures that are put in place. And indeed, this is all in an effort to promote the role of the police in ensuring individual freedoms. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador. So for the next 10 minutes or so, we will try to complete the second group, including Bulgaria. Madam Ambassador, we have a new question for you from Dr. Waklasi William of the Observatoire OISSHC. The question is, how will you address the specific challenges related to migration, ensuring that the fundamental rights of migrants, including the right to dignity and security, are respected? A question to Ghana from Fabiana Levy, HRC Net. If elected, how do you plan to ensure the protection of civil society space in the Human Rights Council? A question to Indonesia from ASEAN Sogi Caucus. What is Indonesia's position on the existence of diverse sexual orientation and gender identities in Indonesia? Identifies that existed long before independence or colonization. What is Indonesia doing to ensure the safety of all its citizens, including human rights defenders, working to promote gender equality and the rights of LGBTIQIA communities? Question to Japan from Human Rights Watch about national human rights mechanism. Japan does not have a national institution, whether Human Rights Commission, ombudsmen, despite numerous recommendations. When will Japan set up a national human rights institution? A question to Malawi from Human Rights Watch. I hope Malawi is back online. The question is, in the early 2023, the government issued a directive that ordered all refugees and asylum seekers living in urban rural areas to return to Jaleka refugee camp. Children were among these caught up in the enforcement of this encampment policy. Some of the children were forcibly detained at Maula Central Prison, a maximum security prison in Longwe. What has Malawi done to counsel the children who were held in prison and remedy this violation of international human rights law? Question to the Netherlands from Choice for Youth and Sexuality. According to international agreements, the Netherlands is supposed to spend 0.7% of gross national income on development cooperation. In recent years, the government has cut back on this and has been unable to meet these international commitments. For the upcoming years, the Netherlands has announced even more budget cuts. Development budget is necessary for fulfilling and protecting human rights internationally. How will the Netherlands continue to champion efforts on, for example, sexual and reproductive health rights, youth, and protecting civic space in international UN spaces, while nationally they are falling behind? The last question to Peru from Peru Support Group. What steps will Peru take to guarantee the full exercise of fundamental freedoms for all Peruvians in the context of social protests? Has Peru considered police and security reforms as a priority to guarantee the full protection of human rights for civilians, especially those taking part in social protests? So may I, with apologies again, go back to you, Madam Ambassador of Bulgaria, regarding the new question about migrants. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Bulgaria is the external border of the European Union, and we strive to counteract the illegal migration flow. We encourage the voluntary return and reintegration of third country nationals. Bulgarian authorities grant asylum only when all the requirements for international protections are fulfilled. We have active policy of ensuring social integration, equal access to education and healthcare, and providing psychological supports to refugees. The country recognizes that migration is a big challenge, and we attach priority importance to the activities and programs of the International Organization for Migration and the High Commissioner for Refugees, aimed at finding lasting solutions to the contemporary challenges of migration and asylum. And as I mentioned before, we are state party to the Geneva Convention, the status of refugees, and the protocol there too, and we comply fully with those provisions. I just wanted to address briefly the previous question. I think that the misunderstanding comes from the attempt to generalize a question that I think is envisaging a particular case. Therefore, we will be happy to respond later on in writing if necessary after that, because you mentioned in your first introduction recommendations from the Committee Against Torture report. So I think it is a particular case that you're addressing there, and that's why it's difficult to generalize on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador. Now let's turn to Ghana. It's a little bit general question. What is your plan to protect civil society space in the Council? Ambassador, you have the floor. Do we have Ghana online?
They may have lost connection. I think we can move to the next state, perhaps.
Okay, in that case, let's move to Ambassador from Indonesia. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. It is clear that our Constitution, prevailing laws and regulation uphold the principle of equality before the law for all citizens, protections for all individuals from any form of discrimination and violence based on any ground. It is guaranteed. As a state party to 8 out of 9 international human rights legal instruments, we are also committed to the principle of non-discrimination, including based on sex, gender, or any other social status. At the same time, as a democratic society, our national legal framework always corresponds to the consideration of social, cultural, and religious values and norms. And in that particular respect, the issue of SOGI remains a sensitive one in Indonesia and even in many countries. From a legal perspective, we always uphold the well-established principles set out in the international human rights laws. We view that the SOGI term has no legal foundation and has never been recognized in international human rights law, including the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. While acknowledging the diverse view and perspective on this particular issue, we are against the imposition of a set of values and lifestyle that do not align with the socio-cultural and religious sensitive in a large number of UN member states. Therefore, we always pursue to advance priority issues that are common and universal to all UN member states rather than those that only divide them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. May I turn to Mr. Saita from Japan regarding National Human Rights Institution?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Yes, the system for human rights remedy is quite important in any judicial justice system. And in Japan too, we have had continuous discussions on how we should establish the system for the human rights remedy. And we have established detailed systems for those human rights remedies on various human rights issues based on individual laws and regulations. I thank you.
Thank you very much. May I now turn to Ambassador from Malawi regarding a specific situation of children.
Thank you so much for the question. Firstly, I would want to emphasize that Malawi reaffirms her policy and full commitment to always welcome refugees, and we have a long history of hosting refugees, and that policy remains as such. Now, in regards to the reallocation of refugees to Dzaleka camp, and especially children, I would want to say that all measures are being taken to ensure that all refugees, especially the children, are fully protected and their rights are respected. The state is committed to that, and we are also saying that the Malawi Human Rights Commission has been playing its oversight role in this regard to ensure that the rights of children are respected. Broadly speaking, this camp is not suitable to host the number of refugees it is hosting now, and the government of Malawi is planning to close this camp and reallocate all the refugees to a much spacious place so that they are fully protected and their rights are totally respected. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. May I turn to Ambassador from the Netherlands regarding international cooperation.
Thank you very much. On the issues mentioned, the Netherlands punches way above its weight and will continue to do so. We are globally the 7th largest donor on global health and the 3rd largest donor worldwide on SRHR. Also on civic space, we are a big player. We have a program that exceeds 1 billion euros, and we will continue to be active there as well, as mentioned also in our pledge. So in that sense, there is a lot of continuity, and the Kingdom of the Netherlands will continue to be very active on all these in all these fields. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last question was addressed to the Vice Minister from Peru regarding police and security reform. Mr. Vice Minister, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor. En el Estado peruano tiene.
Thank you very much. In the state of Peru, we have a number of mechanisms to deal with the police and the armed forces and promote human rights. We have the Decree 86, which is aimed at dealing with police, the use of force among the police. Various directives have also been adopted to ensure that human rights are respected within this framework. Nevertheless, we do know that all legal frameworks can be improved. Therefore, this year, we have issued 3 protocols on human rights, particularly regarded to vulnerable groups and women. These protocols are aimed at guaranteeing the exercise of human rights and making sure that people have access to justice. Within the police, we've also issued a directive this year to ensure the adequate use of non-lethal force and less lethal force by the police forces as part of operations to maintain public order. Also in 2023, we've established guidelines on these matters to guide the use of force among the police forces, to make sure that all of this is done on a human rights basis. Training sessions have also been carried out for members of the police force to ensure that any such interventions are carried out as part of a human rights-based approach. We also have issued a decree which provides guidelines regarding the intervention of the use of force by the armed forces. We do clearly have a legal framework, but at the moment we are also trying to examine how to improve this framework with the support of the United Nations and the High Commissioner. Within that scope, the Peruvian state also wishes to offer the best possible guarantees to improve protection for peaceful protest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Minister. And I thank all the candidate states for their responses to these questions. As we are running a little bit over the time, I'll now like to move to the closing segment of this event. And I'd like to invite His Excellency Ambassador Philippe Kridelka, Permanent Representative of Belgium at the UN in New York, to make a brief closing remarks on behalf of the co-sponsors. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, moderator, Mr. Ada. Thank you very much for giving me the floor. I would like to thank Amnesty International and the International Service for Human Rights for having organized this important event, which has now become an annual tradition here in New York, and it's a very positive tradition. For Belgium, it is genuinely an honor to be one of the co-sponsors of the event this year, alongside the Permanent Mission of South Africa, our partners and friends in South Africa, who spoke at the beginning of this event.
I would like to stress that the Human Rights Council and its mechanisms are a key part of our multilateral rule-based order. Putting forward a candidacy for this prominent body should therefore not be done in vain. The 3-year mandate must truly be at the service of promoting and protecting the enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms without distinction. This ambition, colleagues, cannot just be taken for granted, unfortunately. It needs to be demonstrated transparently, open to scrutiny by the governments of other member states, but also open to scrutiny by the civil society practitioners, and by the public opinion. The UN Charter speaks of we the peoples for a good reason. That is why Belgium wholeheartedly commends the candidate countries that openly presented their candidacies today, including answering some pointed and often a bit tough, Mr. Moderator, questions, but that's the rule of the game. We encourage those that have not done so yet to formally submit their pledges to the UN so that they can be officially published in its official document system. Last year, Belgium had the opportunity to be part of this experience ourselves, presenting the main points of our candidacy. After 1 year in the Council, we do keep committed to the 4 priorities that we have put forward then. 1, strengthening accountability and the rule of law in order to fight impunity. 2, promoting civic space and protecting human rights defenders and human rights practitioners. 3, enhancing equality and countering discrimination with particular attention for women and girls. And 4, last but not least, promoting all human rights in their indivisibility and interdependence. This means civil and political rights, of course, but also economic, social, and cultural rights. Our Secretary General regularly draws our attention on the importance to promote in an equal measure all those different dimensions of human rights. Guided by the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, its SDGs, and the central principle of leave no one behind, Belgium promotes the link between human rights and development, as well as the human rights-based approach to development encompassing all human rights. And as co-president of the Group of Friends on Decent Work, Belgium, I co-chair that Group of Friends with Morocco, Belgium will continue to promote decent work and social protection and access to health for all in respect for international labor standards. When I'm finishing here, I was happy to hear that we will find many new allies amongst the new Council members to make progress on those 4 priorities. And Belgium stands ready to work with all of the new members. I wish all participating countries today the best of luck during the election in the GA next month. Thank you very much for your attention, colleagues, and good luck to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, dear colleagues. We hope this discussion has helped all to gain a better knowledge and understanding of the vision for membership and human rights commitments of some of the candidates for the Human Rights Council. And we know from past experiences that this kind of event promotes trust between the Council candidate states, civil society, and the UN, and contributes to strengthening international dialogue on human rights. As we continue to address the challenges confronting human rights and multilateralism in the context of global multiple crises, we trust that this year's exchange has offered the same inspiration and enhanced the spirit of cooperation. So on behalf of co-organizers, I thank all candidates for their time and willingness to engage transparently on human rights issues, and the audience for your engaged participation. Thank you very much and good luck for your election.